Welcome to my newest Nightblade build video, guys. This is a dual-wield Destro Nightblade. I guess the best way to describe this build is a well-rounded Magicka Nightblade. It's quite tanky. I've got quite a bit of sustain, and of course I've got a lot of damage on it. And what makes this build so cool is that you're able to play a Magicka Nightblade with a dual-wield cancel kit. And I will talk a little bit about how we made my dual-wield light attacks viable on this build and why it's so important for this build. So let's jump right into it. So let's take a look at the stat page, guys. Number one, you're going to see here, I'm a red guard. My Nightblade is a red guard, guys. That's just the race that my Nightblade is. I'm not about to respec just for one build. So my recommended races would be High Elf, Dark Elf, and of course Breton. Those are going to be your best bets for any Magicka Nightblade build, I think. Taking a look at our max stats here, we are in Cyrodiil right now. We've got 36.5k Magicka, 26.6k health, and 12,400 stamina. Now, the stamina pool is important that you keep it above about 12,000. And I say this because having a lower stamina pool than around 12,000 in PvP is a little bit risque. You might find yourself running out of stamina awfully quick, so having the larger pool helps quite a bit. Looking at my recoveries here, guys, we got 11,084 Magicka recovery, so quite a bit. 400 health recovery, and then 10,080 stamina recovery. Earlier it looked like my recoveries were lower. I just didn't have my Amber Plasma equipped, so I just threw it on. The recoveries are quite good on this build. It's very important that you have high combat recovery, especially for this particular setup. This build is quite good at attrition fighting. You can fight for a long time without running out of resources, so the Amber Plasm set that gives me this recovery is very important for it. I've got 2,400 spell damage, 40.9% spell critical, and these are both unbuffed as well. My physical and spell resistances are nothing special. I am in light armor, 5 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy, so they're not going to be too impressive. The big stat to look at here is 1677 crit resist. This is quite a bit of crit resist. The reason that I went with a lot of critical resistance on this build is because I am in light armor, and I found throughout my own gameplay that running crit resist on light armor was ultimately your best bet to keep yourself from dying, because it's hard to get that physical resist up there, and crit resist, of course, is going to encompass not only incoming spell crits, but the physical crits as well. So critical resistance, super important for this build. And there you have it. The boon that I'm running, guys, is the Mage. The Mage I chose because of the max Magicka value. We are using a Dampen Magic damage shield on this build, so the Mage comes in quite handy for it. And then finally, we're using max health and max Magicka food. Now, if you find that your maximum stamina is below like 12 or 11,000, you might want to think about running the tri-food for this build for yourself. But I decided to go with the max Magicka and the max health food because ultimately this is going to give you a higher max health bonus than the tri-food will. You'll have about 1k more max health with the blue stuff. And this is really useful for PvP. Of course, burst is a big deal in PvP, and you want to have enough HP so that people can't just one-bang you. So it's good to have a pretty high max health pool for any build, really. So, how am I getting these stats? Let's take a look at the build, guys. We're going to start with our monster helm set here. I've got a 2-piece Troll King on. Now, remember at the beginning of the video, I said that we're doing dual-wield Destro on the Magicka Nightblade. Dual-wield Destro does not natively come by any heals that are very useful for a Magicka build. Of course, dual-wield you can get some healing power, but that's for a Stam build. And of course, the Destro staff you get 0 healing power off of. So I decided to run Troll King to offset the fact that I didn't have a burst heal on this build. So what this set's going to do is, number one, it'll give me a little bit of increased healing done, and then number two, if I heal a friendly target while they're below 60% health, their health recovery will be increased by 15k. This comes in so handy for this build. You're going to use your Dampen Magic, of course, to put up that damage shield, and then you just hit your opponent with any heal over time ability like Swallow Soul, and what it's going to do is give you that huge amount of health recovery on top of whatever heals over time you put on yourself, and it'll make you quite hard to kill. So this set is very important for this Magicka Nightblade build. It is the saving grace of it. It's the only reason that I can run around on this build and not get destroyed in Cyrodiil by burst damage. Finally, the next set we've got on here is Amber Plasm, guys. We've got it in all of our ring slots and our necklace slot. And then we've got Amber Plasm in our chest piece here and our gloves. Amber Plasm, of course, is where the sustain on this build is going to come from. Max Magicka, spell crit, spell damage, 286 Magicka and stamina recovery. One of, if not the best, sustain for Magicka sets in the game. A great alternative if you guys do not have access to Amber Plasm is to go for Bloodthorn. Bloodthorn is going to give you similar results to Amber Plasm, except you don't have to go farm a dungeon for it. You can just buy it off other players. And then finally, guys, the last 5-piece set that we've got on this build is Torag's Pact. Now, Torag's Pact is actually a really important set for this build. It is what makes the build work the way that it does. Spell damage, max health, and spell resistance. The big piece we're getting out of here is the spell damage and the max health. Spell resistance, not such a huge deal for this build. Finally, the 5-piece, increase the potency of your weapons enchantment by 30% and decrease the cooldown on your enchantment proc by 1 second. So what this does is it gives you a really powerful flame enchant, as you can see on my weapon here. 5,187 damage on my flame enchant. We're going to do the minor berserk buff off there. And we'll take another look at that flame enchant. 5,582 flame damage. This is on about a 1 second cooldown. So what this does is it gives your dual wield light attacks, like pretty much every time you use a dual wield light attack, your flame enchant is going to go off and it's going to deal a lot of damage. Now you see I have an offhand cold weapon as well, and this one is not gold, so the tooltip's a little bit lower, but it's the same thing. This is on a 1 second cooldown, and both my weapons here are infused. That's important. You're going to see better returns on your damage because of your enchant procs, and your enchants will proc more often when you run the infused weapons. So don't be tempted to switch to sharpen for this particular build. Infused will perform way better for you. And then finally, my Torag's Pact is in my gear here as well. We've got the boots, the robe, and then the sash here. And when I swap to the Destro staff, I only get to maintain the 4-piece Torag's Pact. So if you decide to use Bloodthorn on this build, one thing that you can do is run the 5-piece Bloodthorn only on your dual wield bar, and then you can run Torag's Pact on both your Destro and your main bar. And what this will do is increase the value of this enchant here. We'll switch to the Torag's Pact. You see it goes up to 542. But this is just because I have my dual wield bar, so it's kind of like I don't actually get that 542. This is just what it would be if I had the 5-piece Torag's on. So that's always an option if you're going to go Bloodthorn for this build, guys. Okay, so the enchants on our rings here are all spell damage. These are just purple enchants. I didn't actually get around to golding them. You can see my Amber Plasm rings are only blue, so I'd want to get purple ones before I worry about golding those out. For your gear, I would recommend that you enchant all your small pieces with maximum Magicka. And for this build, I would also recommend you make all your small pieces impenetrable. Impen, as we talked about earlier, is going to be really important to reduce the amount of incoming burst you take on this setup. Of course, I don't have the impen on my shoulder here. This is just well fitted, and that's just due to the drops that I got. And finally, for the big pieces, I would recommend that you go infused on them and you run Hacky Joes. And I say Hacky Joes because we're using the max stamina and the max health food. The Hacky Joe is going to, or sorry, we're using the max Magicka and the max health food. The Hacky Joe is going to not only increase your maximum stamina, giving you a little bit more of a cushion to play with on your stam bar, but it's also going to increase your maximum health at the cost of a little bit of Magicka. And then finally, guys, your off weapon on the staff is going to be enchanted with the increase your weapon and spell damage enchant. And then your main weapons, this is the fun part. These ones are actually totally up to you. I would recommend that you guys go and take a look around what each of these enchants do. There's a lot of different elemental enchants that you can put on your weapons here, and they all have kind of different side effects. The flame damage is going to do a little bit of damage over time. The frost one, of course, can inflict your opponent with chilled. So they all kind of do different stuff. So these ones are totally up to you guys what you want to use. If you ultimately want to deal the most damage, you want to go for dual flame damage. That's how you're going to get the best outgoing damage, and that's because the flame damage is going to give you that little bit of a dot as well. All right, so let's take a look at the skills, guys. We're actually going to start on my second bar, the Destro bar here today. And the reason we're going to start on the Destro bar is because this is the important bar to learn how to play for this build. The Destro bar is pretty much your healing bar. Now, because it's a Destro staff, it's still going to deal a lot of outgoing damage. And what you can do is if you weave your offensive light and heavy attacks in between your different healing abilities here, you can have a really strong offensive, defensive Destro bar going on. The first ability we're going to use is Swallow Soul. This is going to deal 7k magic damage, and it's going to heal me for 28% of the damage I inflicted every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. It's also going to give me minor vitality while I slotted it. A big part of this Destro bar, of course, we're playing in the siphoning tree, so we're taking advantage of all that bonus healing for slotting siphoning abilities. We're at a 9% bonus. So we're stacking that healing on this Destro bar. So this is going to be not only a great long-range attack, but a great heal over time. This will also proc Troll King if I'm below 60%. The next ability we have on the bar is Refreshing Path. It was really important that I had a heal that I could use without a target on this build. Refreshing Path is that heal. You can also use this to proc Troll King, giving you that really huge burst, kind of like dot healing. While on the path, you get an increased bonus to your movement speed by 30%, and on top of it, it heals you. And also, guys, this is a shadow ability, so when I activate Refreshing Path, it is also going to increase my physical and spell resist by 5,280 for 5 seconds. And this bonus is also increased by heavy armor. We're wearing the 5 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy, so I only get the 25% bonus to it, the duration on it. The next ability on the Destro bar is Dampen Magic. This is an important shield. Because we don't have a burst heal, it is very important that you run Dampen Magic on this build. Because when you get hit with that incoming burst damage, I absolutely need something to take a bit of damage for you while your HOTS work on healing you. And that is Dampen Magic. The next ability we have on the bar here is Merciless Resolve. This is going to give you Minor Berserk, increasing your damage done by 8% for 20 seconds. An absolutely fantastic passive ability, so important to use on a Nightblade. You get a lot of outgoing damage from that. And then finally, after 4 light or heavy attacks, you will turn this into Assassin's Will. As I said before, guys, if you learn to play with this Destro staff, it's very kitey and you can deal a lot of damage from distance. So getting your Merciless Resolve to proc into Assassin's Will is so easy. It just happens. You just weave and it happens. And then of course we've got a dual wield bar on the other swap, which you can also use to get your Merciless Resolve to proc into Assassin's Will. The last ability on my bar here is Sap Essence. This is kind of my AoE ability, and this is also my access to my major sorcery to increase my spell damage by 20%. Sap Essence, of course, is a great AoE that will heal you. So if you use Sap Essence to hit a lot of targets around you, you can actually tank them by sap tanking them. This build can do a bit of sap tanking. It's definitely not designed for it, so you can't sit in the middle of a Zerg with it for a long period of time. It's just not going to work out. But this ability does have a lot of usage in helping keep the pressure off you when you got 2 or 3 players on top of you. Of course, it's an AoE, so you can use it to pull people out of stealth as well. And then finally, guys, the last ability on the bar is Soul Tether. This is my favorite Nightblade ultimate, I think. Big amount of AoE damage, stuns everyone around you, and puts a damage over time effect on them that heals you for the damage that it does. So there you have it. Of course, it'll activate a synergy for your friend as well. This is just an all-around great offensive/defensive ultimate. Soul Tether being an AoE means it's going to be undodgeable as well, so no one will be able to roll dodge it if you get on top of them. So there you go. Let's take a look at the dual wield bar. The first ability on my bar is Concealed Weapon. This is going to be your primary dual wield spammable attack. Not only is it that, but we do have Cloak on this bar as well. So while you're invisible, having Concealed Weapon slotted will increase your stealth movement speed by 25%. So this is a very important ability to have on your dual wield bar with your stealth. The next ability on my bar, guys, is Lotus Fan. This is going to be your gap closer, and it's going to be a bit of an AoE dot. The big thing, too, that this ability gives you is a snare. 70% movement speed snare. That is actually a really huge snare. So there you are. Lotus Fan is going to be your gap closer leading into that bursty attack with your dual wield bar proccing your enchants. This is how you're going to get on top of your opponents. Something to note about Lotus Fan is that using the gap closer is actually going to allow you to stay in stealth. You can gap close someone using Lotus Fan and it will not pull you out of stealth. So that's something a little trolly about it that can come in handy as well. The next ability on the bar we got here is Impale. This is the execute for your dual wield bar here. As you guys can kind of see now, this dual wield bar is set up very similarly to how a Stamina Nightblade dual wield bar would be set up, and there's good reason for that. We got that Torag's Pact enchanting. Torag's Pact enchant procking, so Impale is going to be your execute. When they drop below 25% health, this is pretty much a guaranteed kill if you can hit them with it. The next ability on the bar is Siphoning Attacks. This is going to be really important for the bigger fights, not so much the little ones. The sustain on this build is quite good, so you don't need to have Siphoning up all the time, but when you get in the bigger scale fights, absolutely keep your Siphoning buff up. It's going to save you. Amber Plasm mixed with Siphoning means that you pretty much will never run out of resources on this Magicka Nightblade until you get pressured like really, really hard. It gives you an absolute amazing amount of staying power. As long as you can stay mildly offensive, you're going to have a really easy time keeping your resources up between Amber Plasm and Siphoning. Something else to mention about Siphoning is that we are using enchants off our Torag's Pact, so all other direct damage attacks have a 10% chance to restore an additional 2k Magicka and Stamina. This means that our light attack off our Torag's Pact and the enchant counts as 2 attacks. So our light attack off of our dual wield bar here is going to give us a 20% chance to restore the Magicka and Stamina. So that's something very, very worthwhile noting, I think. And then finally, guys, the last ability on the bar, you can guess, Shadowy Disguise. This is how we're going to use our invisibility. This is our cloak. Not only that, but we've done the morph for the critical strike here. Whenever you are in cloak, your next strike will always be a critical strike. So this is very useful, of course. The cloak gank means you get the guaranteed crit and so on. And then finally, guys, the last ability on the bar is Soul Harvest. This is actually my favorite morph. Between Incap and Soul Harvest, I liked Soul Harvest the most. And the reason that I like it is because while slotted, anytime you get a kill, anytime you kill an enemy, you gain 10 ultimate. So this means that if you are fighting someone in PvP on this build and you're decently high rank, you're going to return 45 ultimate if you get a kill with your Soul Harvest. So there you have it. If you can manage to pull the kill off with the Soul Harvest, and even if you don't use Harvest to get the kill, just having it slotted will allow you to take advantage of that 10 ultimate when you get a kill. It means that your Soul Harvest is almost always going to be up as long as you're getting kills. This is an incredibly powerful single target burst damage ability. It's also going to affect your target with Major Defile, so it comes in very handy for killing Templars as well. Alright, let's take a look at the champion tree, guys. We're going to start in our green tree here. 27 Magician, 3 in Sprinter. We do a little bit of sprinting, not much bashing going on. Magician's important because, well, we're a Magicka-based build. All our abilities cost Magicka. Taking a look at the Lover Tree, we've got 15 in Mooncalf, we've got 38 in Arcanist, and 29 in Healthy. So we are wearing Troll King. That means that our health recovery is going to be about 2,300 with the Troll King proc. So investing into Healthy is important. Arcanist, ultimately, Magicka is your most important resource for this build, so you need to invest a lot into Arcanist. And then finally, Mooncalf, of course, investing a bit in here for that stamina sustain. This build has awesome stamina sustain. You should have no stamina issues on the build as long as you have a decent sized stamina pool. So investing some points here definitely doesn't hurt. And then we'll take a look at the Shadow Tree. We've got 70 in Tumbling to reduce the stamina cost of our Roll Dodge and Break Free by 14.4%. And then we've got 5 in Shadow Ward to reduce the cost of blocking by 3.1%. Let's take a look at our blue trees here. So as you can see, we're super heavily stacked in the Apprentice tree. We've got 10 in Blessed, 15 in Elfborn, 32 in Spell Erosion. I put a lot into Spell Erosion because we're not running any sharpened weapons. So we have the 5 light armor for that 4k or that 5k penetration, and then we get almost another 2k penetration off of our Spell Erosion passive here. And then finally, we got 100 in Elemental Expert. Ultimately, when it comes to how much damage your light attacks are going to do and how much damage your enchants on your Torag's Pact weapons are going to do, Elemental Expert is the best bet for it. That's the only way to increase that outgoing damage. The next tree we're going to take a look at is the Atronach tree. We've got 30 in Staff Expert. This is important because our light and heavy attacks, their staves increased. I didn't invest anything in melee weapon expert because we're just playing off the enchant on the melee on our dual wield bar. So investing into this wouldn't really help you out. And then of course, guys, an important passive is going to be spell precision off of your apprentice tree for that 12% spell critical rating. Definitely something that we'll need for the build. And then, of course, we got nothing in the ritual, nothing in damage over time. We're not running any dots, really, on this build. We only got 1 or 2 different dots, and they're definitely not our primary attacks. Yeah, and no weapon stuff going in it at all, so we don't need any of these passives. In the Steed tree, we've got 10 in Spell Shield and 27 in Resistant. Now, 10 in Spell Shield to increase that spell resistance. 27 in Resistant, of course, to increase that critical resistance by 681. Crit resist, important for this kind of setup. In the Lady, we've got 6 in Thick Skin, 12 in Hardy, and 12 in Elemental Defender. And this is just kind of to give us a good, well-rounded defense, as well as giving us... well, we've got access to the Shield Expert passive, but I'm not running a shield, so it's not that important. And then finally, we've got 120 in the Lord, 5 in Expert Defender, just to reduce that incoming light and heavy attack damage, 73 in Bastion, and 42 in Quick Recovery. So we invested heavily into Bastion and quite a bit into Quick Recovery as well. Bastion, of course, that we have 1 damage shield on this build that's going to be very important for keeping you from dying to burst damage. So that's why we've got so many points in Bastion. 42 in Quick Recovery because we have so many different heals over time on the build. So it's very important to invest into that healing power as well. Alright guys, so let's get into the PvP commentary. We're going to start with the first fight. We're in the sewers here. This build was so fun to play in the sewers. So here I come up on a group of 3 players. Of course, Magicka Nightblade just fully taking advantage of the fact that I can keep that cloak up for a long time. I go for the gank on the first guy here, and I manage to hit him good with a lot of damage, but I end up not finishing him off. I back up real quick and then go for another stealth attack with my ambush into the conceal to finish him off. I was trying to ambush into this guy to bash him. I missed the first one, but I get the second bash off. So now that these guys are kind of alerted to my presence, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start setting up my shop. So you see here, the first thing that I did is I threw out a Swallow Soul, of course, get those heals over time going on me. Make sure that I buff as well there and keep my shields up. You see this guy's Beldrith proccing on me. I want to make sure to hold it off as long as I can. I go for a big tether there, get the stun off on both of them, and I manage to just rip my blades into that healer and take him down. And then I'm left just to fight this guy here, and I get a really awesome Soul Harvest cancel off on him, and down he goes. And I am left to grab my treasure. On to the next clip, guys. So this is a longer clip here. This is going to be a great clip for the build video, I think. This is an awesome, I do it first. I fight this group of players here, and I get in quite a lengthy attrition fight with them. So this wasn't my first time attacking this group of players as well. It took me a few tries before I was able to get a good fight off against them. But here you go. I pull them into this room here. So they dump their ultimates on the other side of the room there. They all go. There went the Nova down outside there and the Bat Swarm. As soon as I get them all on top of me, I go for the tether. But bam, down goes a negate on top of us. I think this was a negate from an NPC because all of the other enemy players run out of it as well. There goes the second negate. Not sure where that one came from, but there they are again on top of me. So all the enemy players ran out of the corridor. I just kind of held my ground there. If you saw when I did my burst sap there, I did manage to take one of these guys down. But otherwise, you see here, I'm doing a lot of Destro heavy attacks, followed with my Swallow Soul just to keep those resources up. Of course, Siphoning Strikes is going to be very important for a prolonged fight on this build, and you guys can see how well it's performing here. I have the second tether up already, so I'm just kind of trying to bide my time here. I'm trying to split these guys up because I know if they're in a large group, I'm going to have a really tough time taking them all down when they're on top of each other. The one archer overextends a bit, but they all kind of come back out again and to attack me. So I'm really just kind of playing in this corner. I've got my refreshing path down, just holding my ground. I go for another tether there. Instead of going into sap mode on them, I decide to go aggressive on a single target, try to take him down, but the healer reacts quick enough and manages to heal the target before I can really do anything about it. So I cloak up real quick, go for that heavy attack from my cloak into a Swallow Soul, just to put a little bit of pepper on them, and of course, I back it up just a little bit, throw my path down, and I wait for them to come again. So at this point, these guys have figured out a little bit that I'm going to be kind of an ass for them to kill. So they decide to back up a little bit. A few of them go down the hallway there, but the Templar comes at me all on his lonesome. So this is me fighting quite a tanky Magicka Templar here. He went for the jabs into Radiant. Of course, I'm just keeping my HP high, making sure that my hots are dotting up on me, so I'm not too worried about his outgoing damage. He goes in for the aggressive attack there, and he just doesn't heal himself. All it takes is a few soul harvests and heavy partial charged heavies, followed up with a bit of love from my daggers. Now these guys made the fatal mistake. They have all split up, and I'm just kind of left to rotate on them. And you can see just how much damage my swords are going to do here. So much enchant damage. Their HP bars just kind of melt as soon as I get on top of him. He tries to block it, doesn't work out, and then I'm just kind of left to chase this guy. And he tries to get out. He's running to the door here, but I worked hard for these stones, so I'm not about to give him up that easily. He tried to get through the door. Of course, you guys see just how much his shuffle is doing work for him here. How many attacks did I miss off of his shuffle there? It's not even funny. But I do manage to just whittle him down with my daggers, and he does drop. And as my way back out through here, I'm coming back out into the central area, I actually run into 4 more players. A group of AD comes running around the corner. Luckily, I'm in stealth already, so I don't even buff here. I don't know. I just go really aggressive on them, drop the tether heavy attack, and I managed to nuke 2 of them right away. I'm just kind of left to fight these 2. I try to go for some really quick bursts into this guy, but there goes his Destro ult, and I know that playing the burst game inside of that Destro ult is not going to be a good idea. So I buff up here, keep my shields up. Of course, I throw my refreshing path down, and I'm swallow souling. Try to make sure that I keep my my resources and my health pretty high. You see I get dropped pretty low there, but I risk it for the biscuit, and I manage to take down the one guy there. And I'm left just to fight this last Nightblade. Really quick cancel on him with the swords there, and he drops super fast. And there you have it, guys. That is the end of that clip. Let's move on. So this clip here, guys, we're going to be looking at a bit of Zerg play on this build. I know what you're thinking. Zerg play, Jack? That's gross. Well, you know what? It's Cyrodiil, and sometimes it gets Zergy. So we're going to see how this build kind of performs when there is a lot of guys on you and a lot of guys on the field. You see I get a really awesome burst off on that guy on his horse. Typical Nightblade. Got to do a quick little horse gank. Otherwise, you're not Nightblading. So in this clip here, we're kind of at this resource here, just outside the yellow keep. This is Alessia, so you guys know that there's a lot of yellows hanging out at the bridge here. Of course, I just ran up to the resource with a couple other reds here to split up the yellows, see what we can do. So the one tanky Templar, he gets out of there. I'm going to kind of go into their back lines here. I'm just throwing random heavy attacks. I did want to go for the gank on him, but unfortunately it didn't work out. You guys see right there I'm in stealth, and I use my gap closer. It does not pull me out of stealth. Like I said in the build video, guys, that gap closer will not pull you out of stealth. Not sure why, but that's the way it functions right now. So as I notice more yellow players kind of coming out into the fight here, I'm just kind of positioning myself. A big thing about playing, especially a Magicka Nightblade in open world PvP, is you want to be very careful where you're seen. And I say this because there are things like marks, snares, etc. Now, because we have an awesome stamina pool, we can deal, and awesome stamina recovery, we can deal with getting snared, etc. But the mark is usually the bad one. You see I drop the soul tether in the middle of these guys, and you guys see just how powerful Siphoning Strikes is. It really does work there. I'm holding my block the whole time that I was sap tanking them and rolling in between, and it really saved my bacon. I'll say that, having Siphoning up, just to keep those resources high. Siphoning will proc off of any of the dot ticks, and of course off of the Siphoning attacks as well. Off of my AoE attacks as well, sorry. I go into the tower. Tower naturally is going to be the last kind of line of defense here against the larger group of players. You can't really expect to fight them on the resource with the guards, right? So I'm making a bit of a scene up top here. I'm doing it on purpose because I do want to attract some yellows up here. I don't want them all to just run back to the keep. This guy takes quite a bit of damage, and he runs off. And he almost dies from the fall, but he ends up being okay. And then I'm kind of left up here with one other Nightblade on top of me. I throw down the refreshing path around the corner, make sure that I'm buffed, and 2 come around the corner at me. I throw my heavy attack off the Destro Staff into the first guy. Of course, I'm going to keep my shield up in between. I go for a quick tether there. I get the stun off on both of them, and I do manage to just take one of them down in the tether. and then the DK leaps on me and take quite a bit of damage and the stun. I reset my refreshing path, turn around for that fully charged heavy attack, and I continue beating on them. I am marked here, so I can't use my stealth to stay alive, so all I have to do is really just use all of my hots and shields and keep myself alive like that. I go for a really quick little couple jabs into that guy with my daggers, and I managed to take him down, and then I get jumped on by the groups of players. I try to cloak out of this. It's not working out at all. Everything's pulling me out of stealth, so this is... I just get caught in a really bad position. The guard throws down the AoE, and of course, I'm just getting slammed on. And like all Zerg fights, it'll eventually end in death for the solo player. So there you go, guys. That is the end of this build video. I hope you guys really enjoy the build. This was one of my favorite builds that I've made in quite a while. I really enjoyed playing it, and I found it to be incredibly strong, even in today's proc meta, where the proc sets are rampantly overpowered in comparison to the Magicka equivalents. I found this build to perform very well. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you guys liked what you saw, feel free to hit that like and or subscribe button. And as always, guys, I do stream on Twitch, and I stream usually every morning, and I stream almost every day. So if you guys want to check that out, you can click on the link to my Twitch down in the description, and you can catch me live. Hope you guys enjoy. Have a fantastic evening.